August 3rd, 2015. A scorched summer morning in Bend, Oregon. The town was alive with music, tourists, and the smell of roasted coffee drifting from open cafe windows downtown. But in the Monroe household tucked along Clearwater Drive, all that mattered was a fresh start. Emily Hartley, 24 years old, had just arrived the night before. She had packed her life, what little she owned, into the backseat of her rust-red Subaru. She left behind the wind-swept valleys of Bozeman, Montana, a tired long-distance relationship, and a family still reeling from years of tension. Bend wasn't just a move, it was an escape. She was intelligent, determined, and filled with a quiet optimism that radiated through her warm brown eyes and bright, infectious smile. Emily had enrolled in evening classes at Central Oregon Community College to pursue a certification in child development. In the mornings, she would assist at Sunrise Montessori preschool. Kids loved her. She had that rare patience, the kind you're born with. She was also an artist. Her sketchbooks, full of charcoal forestscapes and sleepy mountain cabins, had won her modest praise back home. But she didn't care about praise. She cared about peace, a reset, a rhythm that belonged only to her. Living with her Aunt Claire and cousin Melissa seemed like the perfect way to start fresh. Claire was her mother's older sister, stern, but loving in her own way. Melissa, a junior at OSU Cascades, was more like a sister than a cousin. Their apartment was modest but comfortable, perched near the piney slopes on the north edge of town. The only constant Emily brought with her was Boomer, her rescued husky lab mix. Loyal, gentle, and slightly neurotic, Boomer stuck to Emily like a shadow. He had comforted her through heartbreaks, panic attacks, and countless cold nights alone. The day after arriving, Emily walked downtown, weaving through the local art galleries and boutiques, absorbing Bend's rhythm like she was inhaling oxygen for the first time. By sundown, she had already picked a favorite coffee shop, met 3 new people, and made plans to attend an open mic at a bar called the Copper Elk. "It's like Bozeman's grown-up cousin," she joked in a voicemail to her best friend back home, but with way more beards and IPAs. Her life was starting to bloom, but she had no idea that within just 11 days, everything would come crashing down in the most brutal way imaginable. The disappearance of Emily Hartley would soon become one of the most chilling and controversial cases Central Oregon had ever seen. Friday, August 14th, 2015. It was a typical warm summer evening in Bend, but in hindsight, everything about it would come to feel eerie, foreshadowed, like the calm before a sudden storm. Emily was in high spirits. Her final class of the week had ended early, and she'd just received confirmation that she'd been offered more hours at Sunrise Montessori. She bounced into the kitchen around 6:30 p.m., where Melissa was sprawled on the couch with a wet cloth on her forehead. "Still got that migraine?" Emily asked. Melissa groaned. "It's like a jackhammer behind my eyes. I think I'm staying in tonight." Emily hesitated for a moment, then grinned. "Well, in that case, I'll just have to drink enough for the both of us." She returned to her room, took a quick shower, and changed into her favorite outfit, high-waisted jeans, a black tank top, and her worn gray Vans. She took a photo in the mirror, added a sparkle filter, and sent it to Melissa. "If I don't come home by 2. Assume I married a guitarist." At 8:42 p.m., Emily left the house. That would be the last confirmed time anyone who loved her saw her alive. She met up with a small group at the Copper Elk, an intimate, artsy bar with exposed brick walls, live music, and a small fire pit out back. Security footage shows her arriving at 9:07 p.m., hugging 2 friends. Then heading to the bar. Sierra Jennings, a barista Emily had befriended during her first week, told police that Emily was giddy, talkative, and very much herself. Over the next 2 hours, Emily was seen on camera dancing, drinking a hard cider, chatting with a man in a green hoodie, and eventually stepping outside to the back patio around 12:38 a.m. That's when things started to fragment. The last confirmed sighting of Emily was at 1:06 a.m., just after she re-entered the bar briefly. She looked agitated, brushing her hair behind her ear several times. She spoke to the bartender, Noah, asking if anyone had seen her phone. Then she disappeared from view. Noah later told detectives that Emily had mentioned waiting on a rideshare but looked on edge. Like something had spooked her. There were no more charges to her card. No outbound calls. No more social media activity. Her Uber account showed no rides booked. At 7:48 a.m. Saturday morning, Melissa woke to Boomer scratching at her bedroom door. His bowl was empty. Emily's bed was unslept in. She wasn't worried yet. Emily had mentioned possibly staying at a friend's if things ran late. But by 10:15 a.m., that changed. Emily's phone went straight to voicemail. Her location shared via Find My Friends had been frozen since just after 1 a.m., somewhere near Franklin Avenue. A narrow corridor near a lot of construction zones and derelict warehouse spaces. At 11:32 a.m., Melissa filed a missing person report with the Bend Police Department. The disappearance of Emily Hartley was now official. When Emily's face first appeared on the local evening news, it was still treated as what officers called a non-critical disappearance. Adults went missing all the time. They reasoned, maybe she had a secret boyfriend. Maybe she wanted space. Maybe she just forgot to check in. But Claire Monroe knew better. Melissa knew better. And Boomer, Emily's dog, seemed to know better too. The husky barely moved from the front door, occasionally howling as if expecting his person to walk in at any moment. Detective Monica Reyes was assigned to the case on Sunday morning. A seasoned investigator with a calm demeanor and relentless work ethic, Reyes had worked missing persons in Portland for over a decade before relocating to Bend. She was the type of woman who asked questions in quiet tones that demanded loud answers. By Sunday afternoon, she had reviewed security footage from the Copper Elk. She noted the following timeline. 9:07 p.m. Emily arrives. 11:42 p.m. Seen dancing with a man in a green hoodie. 12:38 a.m. Steps out to the back patio. 1:06 a.m. Returns to the bar briefly. Appears agitated. Speaks with bartender. 1:11 a.m. Disappears from all camera angles. The camera at the front entrance never caught her leaving. That's when Reyes' instincts kicked in. Either she went out the back, she said aloud, or someone helped her disappear. On Monday morning, a search party organized by Melissa and local volunteers began combing the area around Franklin Avenue, where Emily's phone last pinged. The neighborhood was a patchwork of industrial sites, vacant lots, and old storage units, not the kind of place anyone would walk through alone at night. At 2:15 p.m., a local named Thomas Greaves, who lived in his RV behind an abandoned tire shop, flagged down a patrol officer. "I seen her," he said. "Girl with dark hair, kinda short. Friday night, she was arguing with someone. White truck, loud engine. Could you describe the man?" "Big guy, flannel shirt, looked like he worked with his hands. Didn't see his face well, but I saw his bumper was dented. Rear left." Detective Reyes locked in on the lead. White pickup, flannel shirt, rear dent. She immediately requested surveillance footage from nearby gas stations and businesses. By Tuesday morning, she had something. At 1:32 a.m., a security camera outside a 7-Eleven captured a white pickup truck pulling in. A man with a thick beard exited the driver's side. He wore a flannel shirt and a baseball cap. He purchased a pack of gum and 2 cans of beer. The timestamp? Just 26 minutes after Emily vanished from view. Reyes enhanced the frame and froze it on the blurry company logo stitched on the man's chest. Cascade Timber Supply. Detective Reyes didn't wait. As soon as she confirmed the logo on the man's shirt, she made calls to Cascade Timber Supply. Within hours, she had a name. Zachary Cole, 29 years old. Employed part-time as a night driver. Known to wear flannel and drive a white 2001 Dodge Ram with a dent in the rear left bumper. Reyes pulled his DMV photo, printed it, and walked it down the hall to her captain's office. "This is our guy," she said. At 6:35 p.m. that Tuesday, 2 officers knocked on the door of a small, aging bungalow on the outskirts of Bend. Zachary answered wearing a tank top and basketball shorts. When shown the photo from the 7-Eleven, he didn't deny it was him. "Yeah, I was there," he said casually. "Bought a couple beers after my shift." "Did you happen to see this woman?" Reyes asked, sliding over a picture of Emily. Zach's eyes flicked to the photo. He scratched his beard. "Can't say I remember." He agreed to come in for questioning but requested to clean up first. While officers waited outside, Reyes issued a quiet request for a search warrant for Zach's vehicle and home. In the interview room, Zach stuck to a simple story. He worked until 12:30 a.m., drove to the 7-Eleven, and then went home. He claimed he'd never been to the Copper Elk. Then how do you explain the security camera placing your truck 2 blocks from that bar at 1:05 a.m.? Reyes asked. Zach blinked. Must be a mistake. I don't even know where that is. But Reyes could see the shift, the tightening in his jaw, the way his leg started bouncing. He was nervous, and that was good. The following morning, forensic teams descended on Zach's property. His truck was towed for examination. Inside, under the passenger seat, they found a single long brown hair. In a burned barrel behind the house, they found scraps of clothing, charred fabric, denim melted to plastic, and one haunting clue: a scorched necklace chain with a warped heart-shaped pendant. Claire Monroe confirmed what Reyes already feared. I gave that to Emily when she was 16. She wore it all the time. Every day. Publicly, police weren't saying much yet. But privately, the case had shifted. This was no longer a missing persons case. It was the early stages of a homicide investigation. And Zachary Cole, who had lied, erased his tracks, and played dumb, was about to find himself at the center of one of Oregon's most closely watched criminal cases in a decade. Zachary Cole sat stiffly in the windowless interrogation room of the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. A camera whirred quietly above. The fluorescent lights buzzed just slightly. Detective Reyes watched him through the two-way mirror before stepping in with a yellow folder tucked under her arm. "Thanks for coming in again, Zach," she said, her tone deceptively friendly. He gave a short nod. "Told you everything last time." She sat across from him and opened the folder. Inside were photographs, the burnt necklace, the recovered hair, a screen grab of Zach at the 7-Eleven. She laid them out on the table one by one. Zach didn't look at them. He stared straight ahead, jaw set. "We've done some testing," Reyes said, tapping the photograph of the necklace. "This was identified by Emily Hartley's aunt. She says Emily never took it off. So the question is, how did it end up scorched? Behind your house, in a burn barrel?" Zach's lips pressed into a hard line. Still no answer. Reyes changed tack. She pulled out a new photo, a blurry still from security footage showing Emily walking out the back of the Copper Elk. Behind her, barely in the shadows, was a man matching Zach's build and wearing the same flannel seen at 7-Eleven. "Witnesses place your truck near the Copper Elk that night. We know Emily got into your vehicle. What we don't know is what happened next. You said you never saw her. That's lie number one." Still silence. Then she leaned forward. "Zach, I'm going to be blunt. We've got enough to hold you for obstruction and possibly tampering with evidence. But if you talk now, right now, we can at least try to understand what happened. Because if this goes further, and we find more, you're looking at a murder charge." Zach exhaled heavily, rubbing his face. His voice cracked. "She got in the truck. But I didn't hurt her." "Where did you take her?" "She said she needed air. She didn't want to go home. Said she was mad at her cousin or something. I drove around. For over an hour? I don't know. We stopped near Pine Ridge Trail. She said she wanted to walk. Alone? At 2 in the morning? She was upset." Reyes stared at him. "Zach, that was a remote trail. Pitch black. No one goes there after dark. And now her belongings, partially burned, are found on your property. Help me understand that." "I panicked," he snapped suddenly, slamming his hands on the table. "She left her stuff in the truck. I didn't know what to do." "Panicked about what?" He hesitated. That hesitation spoke louder than any answer. Reyes sat back. "We're getting a warrant for your phone records, GPS, your house, your devices. If you're not going to explain, the evidence will." At that moment, Zach asked for a lawyer. It was over. He was arrested on suspicion of obstruction of justice and improper disposal of evidence. But not yet murder, not without a body. The search for Emily intensified. The trail near Pine Ridge was combed again. Drones, scent dogs, volunteers, still nothing. But the pressure was mounting. The community demanded justice. Emily's face was on billboards. her story flooding news cycles across the Pacific Northwest. And in a quiet conference room in Bend, PD, Reyes stared at the burned necklace on the evidence table, whispering to herself, "Where is she, Zach?" 5 days had passed since Emily Hartley vanished. The town of Bend felt different, tense, restless. The posters on telephone poles no longer looked like missing person flyers, they looked like warnings. Detective Monica Reyes sat in her car staring at the Pine Ridge trailhead. She had driven there every day since the arrest. Something about the location gnawed at her. Emily's phone had last pinged a mile east of this spot. The coordinates weren't exact, just a faint echo in the dark, but Reyes felt sure that if the truth was buried, it was buried out here. That Thursday morning, a group of volunteer searchers moved into the eastern woodline near the Deschutes River. One of them, a retired firefighter named Len Jacobs, was the first to call it in. "There's something floating in the water," he said over the radio. About 200 yards east of the old pump station. Officers arrived within 10 minutes. Reyes was among them. The body had caught against a fallen tree limb, half submerged, tangled in algae and branches. It was a woman, pale skin, long dark hair, one shoe missing. By the time they pulled her from the water, Reyes had already called the medical examiner. And Claire Monroe. It was Emily. The identification came quickly. Dental records confirmed it that night. But there was no relief. Only a new surge of grief. Emily had been shot once, in the chest. But it wasn't the bullet that killed her. The ME determined cause of death to be asphyxiation. She had water in her lungs. She was alive when she hit the river. The medical report also found signs of blunt force trauma to her head and bruising around her wrists. Defensive wounds. She had fought. The next morning, Reyes returned to Zachary Cole's house, this time with a murder warrant. Zach was taken into custody without incident. His face was unreadable, like a mask he'd rehearsed. But the evidence had become undeniable. GPS data from his truck placed him at the riverbend at 3:22 a.m. the night Emily disappeared. Surveillance footage from a Shell gas station caught him cleaning the back of his truck the next morning. A second search of his home turned up a torn piece of fabric buried beneath mulch, later confirmed to match the tank top Emily had been wearing. Reyes confronted him in custody. "You told me she walked away. Now I have her body." Zach stayed silent. "She laid down the autopsy report. You drowned her, Zach. You knocked her out, threw her in the river. And she still fought to breathe." Zach leaned forward. "I want a deal." Reyes didn't flinch. "There's no deal. You don't get to erase what you did." Outside the station, Claire Monroe stood before a sea of microphones. "My niece was brave. She didn't run. She didn't back down. And I promise you this, neither will we." The press dubbed it the Hartley case. But in Bend, it was something more personal. It was the moment the town lost its sense of safety. And for Detective Reyes, it wasn't over yet. Because as airtight as the case looked, one thing still didn't sit right. If Zach acted alone, who sent the final text from Emily's phone at 4:17 a.m.? Detective Reyes couldn't sleep, not with the 4:17 a.m. text replaying over and over in her mind. The message had been sent from Emily Hartley's phone over 3 hours after the last confirmed ping from Zach's truck. It was short, vague, and chilling. "I'm okay. Don't wait up. Going hiking. Love you." It had been sent to Melissa. The message didn't match Emily's usual texting style. She rarely abbreviated. She always used punctuation. And she never signed off without an emoji or nickname. Melissa knew it. Reyes knew it. And digital forensics confirmed it. The phone had sent the message from a location 4 miles east of where Emily's body was discovered. A place known locally as the Bramble Lot. An overgrown construction site near the old lumberyard. The site was accessible by one narrow road. Cameras from nearby businesses showed no signs of Zach's vehicle that night. But another vehicle did show up, twice. A silver Jeep Cherokee, registered to Aubrey Jensen, age 26. Reyes blinked when she saw the name. Aubrey had dated Zach off and on for over a year. They had split 2 months prior. But she still lived in a duplex just 3 blocks from him. Detectives canvassed her street. One neighbor remembered hearing raised voices outside around 3:45 a.m. the night Emily went missing. A female yelling, a male slamming a car door. Reyes paid Aubrey a visit. The door opened slowly. Aubrey wore dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled up, and a pale tension in her posture that couldn't be masked. "Just a few follow-up questions," Reyes said politely. Aubrey hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, Reyes noticed a cracked phone case on the kitchen counter, the same model and color as Emily's. When asked, Aubrey said, "It's my backup. Been broken for months." But digital records told a different story. Emily's SIM card had been removed from her phone at 4:03 a.m. Someone had inserted it into a different device, a phone belonging to Aubrey. That was how the text had been sent. Reyes filed a search warrant. When they examined Aubrey's Jeep, technicians found a small scrap of black tank fabric jammed in the seatbelt buckle and traces of soil matching the riverbank. Confronted with this, Aubrey broke down. "I didn't kill her," she cried. "I just helped." The confession shattered the narrative. Aubrey claimed that Zach had called her in a panic just after 2:30 a.m., claiming that Emily wouldn't stop screaming. He asked her to come over. When she arrived, Emily was unconscious, bruised, bleeding. Aubrey said she helped Zach carry Emily into his truck. He said she was still breathing. Said he'd drive her somewhere safe. "I didn't ask." When Reyes asked about the text, Aubrey wiped her face. He said, "I needed to throw people off. Make it look like she walked away." She complied, terrified, controlled, manipulated. But now, she was going to testify. Zach was rebooked on upgraded charges: first-degree murder, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Aubrey Jensen was charged as an accessory after the fact. The case had cracked wide open. And for the first time in 2 weeks, Detective Reyes finally felt like the truth was clawing its way to the surface. The arraignment of Zachary Cole and Aubrey Jensen became a media spectacle. Camera crews lined the courthouse steps. Protesters held signs demanding justice for Emily. Others cried quietly, holding candles and photos of a woman whose smile had become tragically iconic. Inside the courtroom, Zach sat stone-faced in a blue jumpsuit, shackled at the ankles. Aubrey, wearing a gray hoodie and trembling hands, avoided eye contact with him. Claire Monroe and Melissa Hartley sat behind the prosecution, surrounded by loved ones and supporters. The state was ready. The evidence was overwhelming. Detective Reyes took the stand first, walking the jury through the timeline. She showed the bar footage, the GPS data, the burned barrel, the scrap of Emily's shirt, the planted text, and finally, the chilling discovery of Emily's body in the Deschutes River. Reyes never raised her voice. She didn't need to. When it was Aubrey's turn to testify, the courtroom held its breath. She began softly, voice cracking as she recounted Zach's phone call, her decision to help him, and the fear that gripped her in the hours that followed. She described Zach's rage, the control he had over her, and the moment he forced her to use Emily's SIM card. "I knew it was wrong," she whispered, "but I didn't know how to stop it. I thought if I helped him cover it, maybe he'd calm down. Maybe no one else would get hurt." The defense painted her as a willing accomplice, a jealous ex-girlfriend who helped dispose of her rival. But Reyes' closing argument struck a chord. Zachary Cole didn't act in a moment of passion. He acted with intention. He silenced a woman who rejected him and then tried to erase her existence. And when he couldn't, he manipulated someone else into helping cover it up. That is not weakness. That is premeditated evil. On the 10th day of the trial, the jury returned its verdict: guilty on all counts for Zachary Cole, first-degree murder, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Guilty for Aubrey Jensen, as an accessory after the fact. Her sentence: 5 years, with eligibility for parole in 3. Outside the courthouse, Claire Monroe gave a statement. "Nothing will bring Emily back. But now, we can finally stop waking up each morning wondering if the world forgot her. She mattered, and we'll never stop saying her name." News outlets ran with the story for weeks. Documentaries were pitched, podcasts recorded deep dives, and across the country, people grieved for a young woman whose dreams were drowned far too soon. But for Reyes, justice wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of learning how to live with what had been found. The courtroom was silent now, emptied of jurors and news crews. Only the echo of closing arguments seemed to linger in the marble halls. For Detective Reyes, that silence was louder than anything she'd heard during the trial. She stood outside the courthouse, rain slicking her coat, staring down at the courthouse steps. Emily's photo was still taped to a lamppost across the street, faded now. Water-stained, but still smiling. Bend began to move on, as towns always do, but scars don't heal cleanly, and trauma doesn't expire with a verdict. Melissa transferred schools, unable to return to Osu Cascades. She moved in with her grandparents in Corvallis, needing distance. Claire retired early, spending her days volunteering at a domestic abuse shelter where she spoke often, but never publicly, about what grief really looks like. Aubrey Jensen began her sentence at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility. In her first interview with the prison therapist, she said, "I can't decide if I'm more afraid of being forgotten, or being remembered only for that night." Zachary Cole was transferred to the Oregon State Penitentiary in Salem. He refused to give any media interviews. His appeal was filed, but it didn't gain traction. Not when new evidence surfaced, journal entries Emily had written during her first 2 weeks in Bend. Recovered from a private blog Melissa found after the trial. One entry, dated just 4 days before her death, read, "There's someone from the bar who keeps showing up places. I told Sierra I thought he was just a coincidence. But, I don't know, it's like he wants me to notice him. And not in a good way." It wasn't admissible retroactively, but it made one thing undeniable. Emily had sensed danger. She just didn't know how close it truly was. Detective Reyes spent weeks going over the case file again, line by line, not because she missed anything, but because she needed to feel certain that justice had been thorough, that nothing else was hiding. She began teaching part-time at the local academy that fall. Her first course, criminal pattern recognition. Her first lecture. Sometimes the most dangerous person isn't the one hiding, it's the one already standing in front of you. But she kept a copy of Emily's file in her desk drawer, beneath a yellow sticky note that read, "Never assume coincidence is harmless." 6 months after the trial, the town of Bend gathered for a candlelight vigil at Pioneer Park. The snow had just started to fall, the kind that silenced everything. Hundreds stood shoulder to shoulder, candles flickering like fireflies in the night. On a makeshift stage, a small wooden sign read simply, "Her name was Emily." Melissa read a poem. Claire spoke briefly, voice trembling but resolute, and then a local children's choir sang, "You Are My Sunshine," Emily's favorite song to hum to the preschoolers she once worked with. Detective Reyes stood in the back, her badge tucked away, just another person in the crowd. Afterward, she approached Claire quietly and handed her an envelope. Inside was a charcoal sketch of Emily, drawn from a photo taken the first week she arrived in Bend, Emily sitting cross-legged in the grass, Boomer resting against her side, both looking toward the sun. "I found the photo in the case file," Reyes said, "thought it should live somewhere else now." Claire didn't speak, she just hugged her. In the months that followed, Reyes helped push for legislation in Oregon that would become known as Emily's Law, a bill requiring rapid digital forensics support on missing person cases within the first 24 hours, including emergency SIM tracing and social media freeze orders. It passed unanimously. The case also became a fixture in criminal justice classes across the Northwest. Podcasts debated it, documentaries dissected it, but none could truly convey the quiet way Emily changed those who knew her, or those who came to know her through her loss. Melissa eventually returned to school. She got a degree in child psychology and began working with trauma victims. Her first published paper was dedicated to Emily. Boomer, gray-muzzled but faithful, still waited every morning by the front door. He didn't howl as much anymore, but sometimes, when the house was too quiet, Melissa swore she could hear him whimper. On the 1-year anniversary of her death, a bench was unveiled by the Deschutes River Trail. On its bronze plaque, "In memory of Emily Hartley, artist, teacher, dreamer, you are still seen." Reyes visited often, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with questions. She'd sit for a while, just listening to the wind. And every time she stood up to leave, she whispered the same thing. "We didn't forget."